Hi, I'm Mark from the OrderWise Training Team. In this video, we're going to help you to become more familiar with the files that you've just been sent by your OrderWise project management team. Firstly, let's take a look at the files you've just been sent. I appreciate there's a lot of them, but they'll provide information about your customers, suppliers, stock items, and information about how to set up your warehouse. If we take a look at these files, you'll see there are some tabs at the bottom. There's your Data tab. This is what's going to be imported and contains example information to help guide you. Next, the Instructions tab gives you some handy information about how to fill out the sheet and explains some of the fields you'll encounter. Additional fields gives you a list of extra columns you can add to that data sheet. And lastly, Run Checks. This will tell you if there's anything missing and highlight those missing fields on the datasheet. If we take a look at the Customer folder first, you'll see that each folder has multiple import files for each area. There's a Customer Import, which provides account and invoicing details. The Customer Contact Import, which will let you record things like name, contact info, and job roles. And Customer Delivery Address Import, should your customer have more than one site. Let's explore these. If we start with the Customer Import, you'll notice that the account number and statement fields are coloured red. This means that they're mandatory fields. Your account numbers can be anything you like, as long as they're unique, although it might be worth aligning them with your current accounts package. You'll see that this file will let you import statement and invoice address information. This is because customer accounts can accommodate multiple addresses and support both consumer and trade accounts. If your customers are primarily retail, the statement address and invoice address can be identical. If you don't produce customer statements, just think of the statement address as the customer's primary address. As well as your address information, you'll also need to configure account-specific information like tax rate, nominal code, and whether they're an account customer. Your specific needs may differ from the standard setup, but don't worry if you're not sure about what to do here. You can leave the standard settings intact, and your trainer can guide you through the various options when they're with you. If you have customer accounts that use foreign currencies, you'll need to specify that in the currency column. Please bear in mind that you can only have one currency per account. Multi-currency customers will need an account per currency. If you need to capture additional details against your customer account and you can't see the right column, don't forget the additional available field sheet. If you're not sure, just add the column and name it something relevant and add the information to the import sheet. Your project manager will discuss the information with you. Now let's take a look at the Customer Contact Import. This file lets you import multiple contacts against your account. For trade account, this lets you record departmental contacts such as their sales accounts and warehouse contacts. For consumer accounts, we'll still need to have this as a contact, but this will typically just be the customer's name, email address, and telephone number. At a minimum, all you're required to provide here is the account number to which they belong and their name. Lastly, in the Customer folder, we have the Customer Delivery Address Import. This allows you to store multiple delivery addresses against a single customer contact. Don't worry if the customer only has one contact address. The statement, invoice, and delivery addresses can all be identical. If your customer has multiple addresses, retail locations, warehouse, or building sites, you'll be able to store them all against a single account. This will allow you to select from available addresses as well as add new addresses during the sales process. And your trainer will explain that to you when they're with you. Now let's take a look at the Supplier folder. This is very similar to the Customer Import, but as suppliers are sending you the goods, there's no need for a delivery address import. Let's explore the Supplier Import. Just like the Customer Import, we'll need supplier account numbers. You can enter your supplier name and address information and the currency they invoice you in. You'll be able to set their purchase nominal code if it differs from the standard setting, their applicable tax rate, and payment terms if required. If you're not sure, you're welcome to leave these as the default for now, and your trainer can explain further. There's also a supplier contact, which will provide the same functionality as your Customer Contact Import. Contact information isn't crucial for training. If you have the information handy and the time to provide it, great. Otherwise, we can sort it out post-training. Let's move on to the Product and Variant folder. Stock items need a bit more work, and has a few more import files than the other folders do. But stock records take on two forms: product and variant. Product allows you to group similar items together, and variants are the standard term in OrderWise for your stock item or SKU. Don't worry, these terms can be changed, but for the imports, we're going to stick with the standard terms for now. Product records group similar items together, but also controls traceability. So does it need a serial or batch or expiry dates? Each product or group of items will need its own code and description to identify it. So let's open the product import. The product code needs to be unique for each product, but this record is mostly there just to group items together. So depending on the industry, the product code could be as simple as t-shirts, cordless drills, or coloured paper. The product description is just that, something for you to describe what the group is. The usage method will help OrderWise to determine the order in which your stock will be dispatched. Each product can be configured differently depending on your needs, but common options are to choose first in, first out, or soonest expiry, or your trainer can discuss with you implementing walk routes in your warehouse. If you're not sure, please just feel free to leave it as FIFO. If you need the ability to batch or serial trace products, then all you need to do is set the value in the respective columns to true. If this is the case, please bear in mind that you shouldn't mix traceable and non-traceable items in the same product. For example, if you wanted to trace cordless drills, but drills and drill bits were in the same product, OrderWise would ask you for a serial number for a drill bit. As you can imagine, this isn't ideal, so we'd advise separating out the two different types of items into their own products. Next, we've got variants. This is your traditional stock record. This is what you buy, what you sell, what you move around the warehouse. The variant record looks complicated, but it's there to answer a few basic questions. What is it? What do we sell it for? Where do we get it from? And where are we storing it? Let's take a look at the variant import files. First, your variant import. This is your main stock record and has info like your item's code or SKU. The file will ask you to provide a product code. This is so we know how to group your products and which variant codes belong to the products. Your variant code is your item code or SKU. This needs to be unique for each stock item. Your variant description will appear on all of your customer, supplier, and internal facing paperwork. Along with the variant code, it can be used to search for stock items. You'll be asked for the standard sales and purchase tax rates. Now, this isn't customer or supplier specific at this point, and your customer and supplier can be configured to override this tax setting. If you're not sure for now, just leave it as T1 for both. You'll be asked if the variant can be purchased or sold or both by the purchase variant and sale variant columns. This is because, depending on your needs, you may purchase items that you don't sell, such as consumables or components in manufacturing processes. You'll be asked to provide your sales and purchase nominal codes. If you're not sure, please feel free to leave these as the default setting and your trainer can discuss these when they're with you. If you're using handheld scanners, you can provide EANs or barcode info. Next, we'll need to identify who we can buy this variant from. This is where the variant supplier details import comes in. This helps you to make sure that the right item is ordered from the right place, on time, and in the right quantities. To start with, the import is simply going to ask you for the variant code and the supplier account number. This will let OrderWise know who you can purchase these items from. There are several optional fields that you can add, such as supplier part number, supplier description, if your supplier has their own codes, as well as minimum order quantities and guide lead time. Please be aware though that guide lead time uses working days, so 1 month is 20 days. These are all optional and they don't need to be included for your training, but if the information is easily obtainable, please feel free to provide it. Now we need to provide some information about storing your stock item. If we take a look at the variant stock location import, you'll see this lets us tell OrderWise which warehouse we want to stock these items in. If you only have the one warehouse, you'll only need the one record. But if you're a multi-site organization, this lets you stock items in several warehouses or retail sites. This is also where you can control the forecasting of this item at each location. But please don't worry too much about forecasting information prior to training. Your trainer will take you through this when they're with you. And lastly, to provide some great information to help with the sales and the purchasing process, for reporting and some simple ease of use tools, we can categorize your stock with the category import. This is a nice to have, but it's not essential for training and can be filled out later if needs be. The last set of files that we need to populate for now help us to set up your warehouse. Let's take a look at the stock location setup files folder. There are two files here, the stock location import that has the name and address of your warehouse, and for now, this is all we need to fill out. If you have multiple locations, we can add them here, including consignment locations and Amazon FBA if you need to. And finally, your bin number import. This identifies your racking and floor space locations within your warehouse. These don't need to be finalized prior to training, particularly if you're on a process of moving premises or redeploying your racking. For now, a simple setup will enable your trainer to demonstrate the functionality and explore different types of setup when they're with you. With those files populated, you've just completed the core OrderWise import files. Now let's talk about some additional areas of functionality and how we can import information for them. Let's discuss transformations. By transformations, we're not talking about manufacturing or kitting, but looking at turning one variant into another. For example, you might purchase a case of soft drink, as in one case of 24 cans, and then sell them as singles. In order to do this, transformation allows you to turn that one case of 24 into a quantity of 24 cans. To make this work, you'll need to make sure that you have a variant record for both case and single quantities. You'll also need to make sure that the items being transformed belong to the same product, as you can't transform between product groups. This is to make sure that you can't turn a case of soft drink into 24 staplers. Now let's examine the setup. We'll need to go back to your variant import sheet to add a new column to your import sheet called Stock Can Be Transformed. This is on the Additional Available Field sheet. Anything that could be transformed needs to be set to true. So in this example, where we've got a case of 24 that turns into 24 singles, you would have two variants on the import. The case would be set to true, and the can would be set to false. Next, we need to tell OrderWise how to calculate the number of cans that can be gained from a single case. This uses the number of base units column, which is already on your import sheet. Against the case variant, you'll need to enter 24, and against the single, enter 1. Now OrderWise knows that the case can be transformed into singles, and that you can get 24 singles from one case. There are additional options for transforming variants, but these can be discussed further with your trainer, such as transforming among non-divisible unit quantities. Now let's discuss analysis fields. OrderWise is highly customizable. One of the functions that allows for a lot of flexibility is something called analysis fields. These are additional fields that you can create to capture non-standard information. Essentially, if a field doesn't exist in OrderWise, you can create it. Analysis fields can be created in most areas of OrderWise and can be visible not only throughout the application, but also on customer, supplier, and internal documentation. There are 5 types of fields that you can create. Character fields, which are small fields that can have pre-populated drop-downs. Date and time fields. Numeric fields. Logical fields, which are tick boxes, so true or false, yes or no. And memo fields, which are typically larger text boxes. This is why, in addition to available fields, you will have seen M1, C2, and D6, for example. These represent the different types of analysis fields and show that you can have up to 10 of each type of field anywhere that you can use them. So this gives you a total of 50 additional fields in every section of OrderWise that can accommodate them. So 50 additional fields against your customer records and supplier records and your stock records, and so on. On your various import files, we don't necessarily need you to specify which fields you want to use. But if you can't find the field you need in the additional available field sheet, you're welcome to simply add a column to your import sheet with the field you'd like to add and populate the column with the relevant information. We'll discuss the information with you and help you get them set up. And now, manufacturing and kitting. We'll discuss these together as the setup is very similar. Kitting is our term for bundling. This feature lets you sell a kit, and your pickers will be sent to go and get the items that make up the kit as part of the dispatch routine. Whereas manufacturing allows you to sell items that you create. In both cases, we need to tell OrderWise which type of item they are and how they're made. To start with, you'll need to head back to your variant import file again. There are two fields in the additional available field sheet that you'll need: kit and manufactured. If your variant is manufactured, you'll need to set the manufactured value to true and kit to false. If it's a kit or bundle, you'll need to set manufactured to true and kit to true. This is because both types of items use the manufacturing module to tell OrderWise how they're made. Now you'll need to tell OrderWise how the items are made. If you look in the manufacturing folder, you'll see two import files: kitting import and manufacturing import. Both are filled out in exactly the same way, but I'll explain what we're seeing here. Essentially, we're looking at a recipe. If you were baking a cake, you would be manufacturing it, as we're taking component variants and making something out of them. For this example, you'll need a few variant records. We'll need our cake, which is manufactured. We'll also need flour, eggs, milk, sugar, butter. Each of these items need to be their own variants. These import files are explaining that the cake variant is made up of all those other variants. So let's look at the manufacturing import. The first thing you're asked for is the BOM variant. In this example, this would be the cake. This is because we're creating a bill of materials for the cake. The component variant is the item that makes the cake. You can see in the import there are multiple lines for each component of the bill of materials. The quantity is simply how many of the items are needed by the BOM. So 3 eggs per 1 cake. The kitting import is filled out in the same way. There are many other settings and fields that can affect how the kitting and manufacturing process works, but your trainer will discuss these with you during training. Hopefully, you should now be feeling better about filling out these import files. If you get stuck, please don't forget the Instructions tab. Also, please don't hesitate to contact your project coordinator or project manager for assistance. We're happy to help if you get stuck.